And staying home, it's been another roller coaster ride on the markets for the second day in a row. Joining us now is Mark Lister, Head of Private Wealth Research at Craig's Investment Partners. Craig, if we could start offshore first, it was a bit of a rough night in the US. How bad was it?
Very ugly night in the US. We had the S&P 500, which is the main index, down 9.5%. The Dow Jones off a little bit more than that, around 10%. We haven't seen those sorts of falls in one day since back in the '87 crash. So it was pretty ugly out there, and we obviously followed suit when we opened today.
So, give us the details of how we finished today, and also it was a bit of a rough start for us, as you mentioned.
Yeah, so we started well and truly on the back foot, and the market was down quite sharply this morning, sort of 8%-ish, 9%-ish down. It actually recovered some of those losses, and it's just closed at 5 o'clock, down 4.9%. So we've fallen half as much as the US. I guess sort of that's the good news. You know, from 3 weeks ago, which was an absolute peak of the New Zealand market, we're down just shy of 19%, whereas the US market is down sort of 27% from its peak, which was a couple of days before that. So we are holding up better than some of those big global markets, but still doing it fairly tough.
So tell me, Mark, who were the worst affected today?
Well, today the stocks that have reacted most negatively today are really the same ones that have been weakening right through this episode. So it's anyone that's exposed to travel, tourism, sort of discrete, anyone who will be a loser if we all sort of are in lockdown and have got to stay home. So Air New Zealand obviously is at the forefront of that. Their share price is down 12.5% today, and it's off about 47% this year. So it's really been hit hard. Sky City is another obvious one that would lose if we're all staying at home and not going out anywhere. Sky City was off 7%. It's off about 35% this year. And then you've got tourism businesses, Tourism Holdings, obvious reasons there. Vista Group, that's a company that sort of supports movie theatres. We won't be going to the movies if it plays out in a really bad way. And some of the retirement village stocks also, for obvious reasons, were quite weak.
So we aren't doing as bad as the overseas markets, but how much resilience is New Zealand showing, and how long can that resilience last?
Well, we will follow those overseas markets. This is a global issue, and even though we only have a handful of cases at this stage, we do a heck of a lot of business with the rest of the world, and we will follow what those big markets around the world do. So we're just going to go along for the ride at this point. Having said that, our market does tend to be less sensitive, or it tends to fall less and hold up better during these really weak periods. You see that time and time again through these volatile periods, whether it's the GFC or otherwise. But, it comes down to whether the countries that have got these outbreaks can sort of get on top of them. If they can, you might have actually seen the worst of the sell-off. If they can't, and half the world gets it, and 20 million people around the world die, that's sort of your worst-case scenario, where it really does go global. And in that scenario, you've got further downside.
And recession?
I think a recession is almost certain. It will be really hard for us to avoid a recession when you just look at the disruption that's happening in parts of the US, look at what's happening in Italy. We're already seeing the slowdown. It might not be a worst-case scenario recession, but I think we definitely will see a recession of some magnitude.
Mark, are you talking locally or globally?
I think many parts of the world will slip into recession. It's pretty tough for your economy to grow as much as it did, 3 months ago or a year ago, when everyone's staying home, half the businesses are closed, factories are only at half capacity. While it is hopefully sort of a temporary thing that blows over at some point, it still will take a fair chunk out of economic growth.
Appreciate your time this evening. That is Mark Lister, who's the Head of Private Wealth Research at Craig's Investment Partners.